A god descends from the sky, suspended by an unseen force above the roaring Roman crowd. This was not magic, but machinery, a secret world of engineering hidden behind marble facades and painted scenery. We are about to uncover the ingenious mechanisms that powered the greatest spectacles of the ancient world. You will learn exactly how Roman engineers created illusions so convincing they could make an empire believe. How did they build collapsing temples and flooding stages without modern technology? And what happened to the knowledge behind these incredible machines? What forgotten marvel would you most want to see brought back to life? The roar of the crowd was a political force in its own right. Rome's rulers understood this fundamental truth, and they built colossal theaters and amphitheaters not merely as venues for entertainment, but as instruments of power. These structures were masterpieces of social engineering, designed to hold tens of thousands of citizens at once. Think of the sheer scale, a sea of faces stretching up to the highest tier. All attention focused downward on the stage or the arena floor. In this vast open-air setting, a simple play or a straightforward gladiatorial combat was not enough. The spectacle had to be overwhelming. It had to command awe. This is where the hidden machinery becomes so vital. A general returning from a foreign war needed to demonstrate his divine favor, so a god would descend from the heavens on a complex system of ropes and pulleys. A politician seeking the people's vote might stage a drama where an entire temple dramatically collapsed, proving his command over even the physical world. These were not special effects for mere amusement. They were visceral, unforgettable arguments, made with wood and rope and counterweights. They were a language of power that every Roman, from the highest senator to the lowest laborer, could instinctively understand. The message was clear: those who control the spectacle control the crowd, and those who control the crowd control Rome itself. So the next time we picture these grand events, we must look past the marble and the sand and see the intricate machine humming just out of sight. A machine built not just to entertain, but to dominate the very imagination of an empire. That language of power, however, was not invented in Rome. The Romans were masterful borrowers, taking the brilliant blueprints of others and rebuilding them on an unprecedented scale. To understand their stage machinery, we must first look to the Greeks, the original architects of theatrical illusion. Greek playwrights were the first to introduce gods directly into their stories. But how do you make a god appear convincingly? Their solution was a brilliantly simple crane, the machine. This was a large wooden arm, pivoting on a sturdy post hidden at the side of the stage. Using a system of ropes and winches, an actor playing a deity could be swung into view, hovering above the other performers as if descending from Mount Olympus. This is the very device that gave us the term deus ex machina, the god from the machine, a phrase we still use today for an unexpected solution to an impossible problem. Alongside the flying machine was another clever platform, the echiclima. Think of this as the ancient equivalent of a modern turntable stage. It was a wheeled platform kept just out of sight, often within the stage building. When a scene required the audience to see a consequence of an action that happened offstage, like the aftermath of a murder inside a palace, the large doors would swing open and the echiclima would be rolled forward, revealing the tableau in all its dramatic glory. The Romans saw the potential in these Greek inventions, but their ambitions were far grander. Where the Greeks used the machine for a single, dramatic entrance, the Romans wanted to fly multiple figures at once. Where the Greeks rolled out one platform, the Romans dreamed of transforming the entire stage. They took these elegant concepts and supercharged them, building them stronger, larger, and capable of far more complex illusions to satisfy the colossal appetite of their own crowds. The simple crane was about to evolve into something much more powerful. Two distinct worlds of entertainment existed under the Roman sun. One was the semicircular theatre, carved into a hillside, its stage backed by a towering, ornate wall. Here, audiences watched comedies, tragedies, and pantomimes, performances that relied on storytelling and visual splendor. The other was the elliptical amphitheater, a freestanding ring of stone, its central focus a vast, sandy floor. This was the domain of gladiators, wild beasts, and public executions. This fundamental division between the drama of the stage and the visceral combat of the arena demanded entirely different kinds of mechanical magic. In the theater, the machinery was designed for illusion and narrative. That massive stage wall, the scenae frons, was not just a backdrop. It was a multi-leveled palace facade filled with doors and niches. Hidden behind it were complex systems of ropes and pivoting panels that could swing entire sections of the wall open or closed, instantly changing the setting from a royal court to a forest grove. Revolving triangular prisms, called periaktoi, stood at the sides of the stage, each face painted with a different scene. A simple rotation could transport the audience from a city street to a seaside cliff, all in a matter of moments. The goal was to support the story, to create a fluid and captivating visual world. But step into the roaring amphitheater, and the machinery had a far more brutal and immediate purpose. Here, the engineering was not about subtle scene changes. It was about surprise and spectacle on the arena floor itself. Beneath the sand lay a hidden underworld, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers known as the hypogeum. This subterranean level hummed with activity, housing caged animals, waiting gladiators, and the stagehands of this deadly theater. The most critical machines here were complex elevator systems, powered by massive counterweights and winches operated by teams of men. Cages containing lions, bears, or leopards would be lifted silently from the darkness, erupting onto the sand to the crowd's shock and delight. Trapdoors would fly open, allowing groups of fighters to appear as if from nowhere, creating dramatic entrances that heightened the tension. Some amphitheaters even featured elaborate overhead cranes to lower elaborate sets, or even entire trees into the arena to create instant forests for animal hunts. So while the theater used machinery to build a story, the amphitheater used machinery to orchestrate shock and awe. One was a world of painted illusions, the other a world of very real and very dangerous surprises emerging from the ground. But how do they actually make these massive, hidden elevators work without steel cables or electric motors? The answer lies in the most powerful source of energy they had, human strength, harnessed through a brilliant and simple device. The most dramatic moment in a Roman play could be its very beginning. Unlike the heavy curtains of modern theaters that rise slowly upward, the Roman auleum performed its magic in reverse. This massive, richly decorated curtain did not ascend, it vanished. At a key moment, the curtain would drop with a sudden, startling rush, plummeting down into a deep, narrow trench cut directly into the stage floor. The effect was instantaneous. A lavish set and waiting actors revealed in a single, breathtaking flash. This was engineering designed for maximum dramatic impact. A reveal that commanded immediate silence and awe from the audience. So how did they achieve this rapid descent without the curtain simply crashing into a tangled heap? The secret was a sophisticated system of counterweights and pulleys hidden beneath the stage. The immense fabric was not just dropped, it was controlled. The curtain was attached to a horizontal roller, and from this roller, ropes ran through a series of pulleys down to a heavy counterweight suspended in a pit. In its resting state, the counterweight was held high, which kept the curtain fully raised, hiding the stage. To begin the performance, stage hands would release a locking mechanism. The heavy counterweight would then fall, its powerful downward pull spinning the roller and rapidly winding the curtain down into its slot. The weight was precisely calculated, heavy enough to pull the curtain down swiftly and smoothly, but not so heavy as to tear the fabric or damage the mechanism. It was a perfect balance of mass and momentum. Imagine the tension in the theater as the audience waited, knowing that in a heartbeat the decorated wall before them would disappear, and a new world would be born from the empty stage. This was more than a curtain. It was the first special effect, a grand statement that within this space, the ordinary rules of the world were about to be suspended by the power of Roman engineering. While that grand main curtain revealed the stage in a single spectacular flash, another more subtle screen worked its magic throughout the performance. At the very back of the stage, often in front of the ornate permanent wall, hung the siparium. This was a smaller, more agile curtain, the true workhorse of theatrical illusion. Its purpose was not for a single grand opening, but for a continuous flow of visual storytelling. Think of it as the ancient world's equivalent of a modern quick cut in film. While the main action played out at the front of the stage, stagehands and actors could move freely behind the siparium, completely hidden from the audience's view. A simple, swift drop of this back curtain could instantly transform the scene. One moment the audience is watching a scene in a marketplace, the next, the siparium falls to reveal a pre-arranged tableau of a god's temple, with priests and offerings already in place. This allowed for transitions that felt almost magical, preserving the story's momentum without the awkward pauses of manual set changes. But its utility went far beyond just changing backgrounds. The siparium was also a vital tool for concealing the stage machinery itself. Remember those pivoting periaktoi, or the complex winches for the flying gods. The back curtain provided a perfect visual barrier, ensuring that the ropes, pulleys, and sweating stagehands remained part of the hidden world backstage, never breaking the audience's suspension of disbelief. An actor could be harnessed into a flying rig behind the siparium, and when the curtain was pulled aside, he would already be suspended in mid-air, as if he had materialized from another realm. It was this combination of the grand and the subtle, the crashing auleum and the nimble siparium, that gave Roman theatre its fluid, dreamlike quality. The audience was never pulled out of the experience by the clunky mechanics behind the magic. Every reveal, every transformation, was designed to feel effortless, as if the world of the play was obeying its own enchanting rules. That multi-leveled palace facade was far more than a beautiful stone backdrop. The scenae frons was the very heart of the theatrical machine, a permanent structure designed for constant transformation. Imagine this wall not as a solid, unmoving piece of architecture, but as a living, breathing part of the performance. Its doors were not merely for entrances and exits, they were portals to other worlds. A god might emerge from the central, grandest door, while a comic slave would scurry out of a smaller, simpler one. The architecture itself telling you their social status before they even spoke a word. But the real magic happened in the spaces between those doors. Niches and alcoves were not just decorative. They were strategic hiding places for machinery and actors. Pivoting panels, carefully balanced and hidden within the wall's ornate design, could swing open to reveal an entirely new setting. One moment an alcove appears to be a quiet shrine, the next, a swift rotation transforms it into the mouth of a cave or the entrance to a royal treasury. This was the scenae frons' primary function, to provide a stable, believable core that could then be manipulated for instantaneous change. Flanking this grand central wall were the true masters of quick transformation, the periaktoi. These were large, triangular wooden prisms, mounted on a central pivot. Each of the three sides was painted with a completely different scene, one a forest, one a city street, one a stormy seascape. A stagehand hidden from view needed only to give one a firm push. With a single smooth rotation, the entire mood of the stage could shift. The audience would see a new painted vista appear at the edge of the stage, their minds instantly transported to a new location. The integration of these moving parts with the permanent stone structure was the key to the illusion. The solid, unchanging magnificence of the scenae frons made the transformations happening upon and around it feel all the more magical and believable. It was a perfect partnership between the eternal and the ephemeral, between the unmoving marble of Rome and the fleeting dreams of the stage. The visual spectacle was only half the story. To truly transport an audience, the Romans knew they had to command the very air, to fill the theater with sounds that could convince the ear of distant storms or the whispered secrets of the gods. They engineered an entire orchestra of hidden sound effects, creating an atmospheric immersion that would feel familiar to any modern moviegoer. For the deep, rolling boom of thunder, they constructed a brilliantly simple device. Backstage, technicians would pour a quantity of bronze or stone balls into a large, resonant metal container. Often a copper cauldron or a sheet of brass formed into a shallow drum. When the script called for a storm, they would tilt this container, sending the balls rumbling and crashing from one side to the other. The sound that echoed through the theater was not a mere imitation. It was the real, chaotic, and deeply resonant roar of metal and stone, a sound that vibrated in the chest of every spectator. To accompany this auditory assault, they simulated the blinding flash of lightning by shaking large, thin sheets of brass. The violent, shivering clatter created a sharp, piercing noise that perfectly mimicked the crack of a lightning strike, while stagehands likely used polished metal surfaces to catch and reflect the sunlight, creating a sudden, dazzling glare. But their acoustic genius extended beyond weather. For the eerie, otherworldly voices of spirits, or the commanding pronouncements of a deity, they employed hidden choruses and wind instruments. A chorus of singers, concealed in rooms beneath the stage or behind the scenae frons, would chant or sing in haunting, ethereal harmonies, making it seem as if the sound was emanating from the earth itself or descending from the heavens. The deep, reedy tones of the hydraules, an early water-powered organ, could produce sustained, majestic chords that felt truly divine. This meticulous layering of sound demonstrates a profound understanding of human psychology. They knew that what we hear is as powerful as what we see in building a believable reality. A collapsing temple was not complete without the deafening crash of its fall, and a god's appearance demanded a celestial fanfare. This was not just noise, it was a carefully composed soundscape, an invisible architecture of emotion designed to hold the audience in a state of wonder, proving that Roman stagecraft was a symphony for the eyes and the ears. The most breathtaking illusion was the arrival of a god. When a play's plot became an impossible knot, the solution would literally descend from above, a moment so iconic it gave us the phrase deus ex machina. This was the job of a complex crane, an evolution of the Greek mechane, but built with Roman ambition. High above the stage, a sturdy wooden beam, the brachium, projected from the top level of the scenae frons. This arm was the god's pathway, a pivot point between the mortal world below and the heavens above. The heart of the system lay hidden on the roof, where a team of stagehands manned a large winch, a cylindrical drum around which a strong hemp rope was tightly wound. This rope ran out along the brachium, over a guiding pulley, and dropped down to the actor waiting in a special harness. The harness itself was a work of practical engineering. likely a sturdy leather contraption designed to be both secure and discreet under the actor's flowing costume. At the critical moment, the crew would begin turning the winch, controlling the descent with meticulous care. The god would not simply drop, he would glide, sweeping in a gentle arc over the stage before coming to a graceful halt, hovering above the mortal characters. This was not just a flashy entrance. It was a narrative device with immense power. The god's arrival would settle disputes, reveal hidden truths, or dictate a future that the human characters were powerless to change. The machinery made the divine intervention tangible and believable. The audience saw not an actor on wires, but a celestial being defying gravity, his voice echoing as he delivered a verdict from the heavens. The creak of the winch, the strain of the rope, these were the hidden sounds of a miracle in the making. A perfect fusion of engineering and storytelling that could untangle any plot and leave a crowd in a state of pure, stunned belief. Beneath the wooden planks of the stage and the sand of the arena lay a hidden city of machines. This subterranean world, the hypogeum, was the engine room for the most startling illusions, and its most vital components were the anapisma and catapisma. These were not simple holes in the ground, but sophisticated elevator systems designed for vertical surprise. The catapisma was the platform for sudden, dramatic entrances, lifting actors, gladiators, or even entire set pieces up from the darkness below. Its counterpart, the anapisma, worked in reverse, creating equally startling disappearances, swallowing people or objects down into the void. So how did these ancient elevators function without electricity or hydraulics? The power came from human ingenuity and sheer muscle. A typical system involved a wooden platform, much like a large, square trapdoor, set into a vertical shaft. This platform was attached to ropes that ran up over pulleys mounted at the top of the shaft, then back down to a massive counterweight. To raise the platform, a team of stagehands would release a brake, allowing the heavy counterweight to descend. Its fall pulled on the ropes, which in turn hoisted the platform and its cargo smoothly up to stage level, where it would lock into place with a solid thud. For a disappearance, the process was reversed, the brake was released, and the weight of the platform itself, now heavier than the counterweight, would cause it to drop back into the shadows. The effect was pure magic for the audience. One moment the stage was empty, the next, a group of armed gladiators stood where there was only sand. An actor playing a ghost could vanish in the blink of an eye, leaving behind a stunned silence. In the amphitheater, the scale was even more terrifying. These elevators were used to launch wild beasts directly into the midst of combat. A cage holding a lion would lurch upwards, its door springing open as it reached the arena floor, releasing the confused and angry animal to the roar of the crowd. This machinery turned the entire performance space into a dynamic, unpredictable landscape, where the ground itself could become an actor in the drama, delivering shock and awe on command. Roman audiences craved more than just stories. They demanded to feel the earth shake and see temples fall before their very eyes. To deliver these cataclysmic spectacles, engineers devised methods to recreate natural disasters with terrifying realism. A collapsing building was one of their most stunning achievements. Instead of a real stone structure, they built elaborate facades from lightweight wood and plaster, designed with inherent points of failure. These breakaway structures were held together by ropes and wooden pegs, all connected to a central control mechanism. At the dramatic climax, a single stagehand could pull a lever or release a heavy counterweight. This action would yank the critical supports away, causing the entire facade to crumble in a pre-planned, chaotic cascade. The sound of splintering wood and cracking plaster, combined with the cloud of dust that enveloped the stage, created a visceral, convincing illusion of destruction. For an earthquake, the engineering was even more ingenious. Sections of the stage itself were not fixed permanently to the ground. They were built as isolated platforms, mounted on hidden rockers or pivots beneath the floor. A team of crew members, using long levers, could rhythmically lift and drop these platforms. To the audience, it appeared as if the solid ground was heaving and buckling. Actors would stagger and fall, while columns and statues, cleverly fixed to these moving platforms, would sway precariously. The effect was a controlled yet chaotic simulation of seismic fury. Volcanic eruptions presented a different challenge, one solved with a mix of mechanics and chemistry. A hidden brazier, loaded with special powders rich in resins and sulfur, would be ignited backstage. Using a large bellows, stagehands would blast a cloud of this smoke and fiery sparks up through a vent or pipe, creating a plume that mimicked an erupting volcano. They might even roll painted balls of pumice or lightweight rock down a ramp to simulate lava flow. This was sensationalism perfected, a multi-sensory assault that blurred the line between theater and reality. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? Because for a Roman citizen, witnessing such controlled chaos was a powerful reassurance. It demonstrated that human ingenuity could not only mimic the raw power of nature, but could also command it, turning the world's most terrifying forces into a thrilling and ultimately safe evening of entertainment. Water could transform the very purpose of a Roman theater. The semicircular orchestra, the space between the stage and the seats, was not merely for musicians. It was a basin waiting to be filled. On a normal day, this area hosted dancers and chorus members. But for the ultimate spectacle, engineers would flood it to stage a naumatia, a full-scale mock naval battle. The logistical challenge was staggering, requiring the movement of thousands of gallons of water into the theater and then back out again. So how did they manage it without massive pumps and modern plumbing? The answer flows directly from one of Rome's greatest achievements, the aqueduct. These elevated stone channels, snaking across the countryside, delivered a constant, powerful stream of fresh water directly to the city's heart. For a theater, a dedicated lead pipe would be tapped into a nearby aqueduct or a massive cistern. By opening a sluice gate, water would rush through this pipe, cascading down into the orchestra pit with tremendous force. The Romans understood hydraulics and gravity perfectly. They built their theaters with a slight incline leading from the water source to the orchestra, ensuring a rapid and efficient fill. The result was an artificial lake, right there in the middle of the city, upon which small but real warships, manned by gladiators or prisoners condemned to fight, would reenact famous sea battles. The audience, seated in a rising semicircle, had a perfect, terrifying view of the combat below. But water was not only for grand battles. On a smaller, more magical scale, it was used to create living scenery. The stage itself could come alive with fountains and flowing streams. Small pipes, hidden beneath the stage floor and within the scenae frons, would carry water to spouts and nozzles. With the turn of a valve, a statue in a niche could suddenly spill water from an urn, or a grotto could appear to spring from a natural fountain. Some productions even featured temporary channels built into the stage, creating the illusion of a river crossing a forest or flowing past a temple. This was not just decoration. It was a dynamic element that added movement, sound, and a refreshing coolness to the performance. The gentle splash of a fountain provided a serene backdrop for a poetic scene, while the sudden gush of a new water feature could signal a divine blessing or a change in the seasons. The Romans did not just bring water to their cities for drinking and bathing. They harnessed its theatrical potential, turning a fundamental element of life into the star of the show. proving that their engineering could command not only stone and rope, but the very flow of rivers themselves. But the same engineering genius that could summon a river or a god was also employed for a far darker purpose. Beneath the roaring crowds of the Colosseum, the hypogeum was a brutal, functional machine designed for one thing: delivering violence on demand. The sand of the arena floor was a fragile illusion, a lid placed over a world of cages, pulleys, and desperate men. The most critical components of this underworld were the complex elevator systems, far larger and more powerful than anything used in the theater. These were not for subtle reveals, they were for explosive entrances. Imagine a gladiator standing on a wooden platform deep in the gloom. Above him, a team of slaves strains against a giant winch, a capstan turned by walking in a relentless circle. The heavy ropes tighten, and the platform begins to rise, lurching upwards through the darkness in a shaft lined with stone. The journey is slow, tense, and utterly silent from the audience's perspective. Then, with a final thud, the platform locks into place at arena level, a section of the sand-covered floor swinging away. The gladiator is now exposed, blinking in the bright sun, the roar of 80,000 voices crashing over him. This was psychological engineering, a sudden, disorienting appearance meant to heighten the drama of combat. But the elevators were even more terrifying when used for beasts. Cages containing lions, bears, or leopards were mounted on these same platforms. The animals, agitated and hungry, would be lifted into the heart of the spectacle. Often, the cage door was rigged to spring open the moment it reached the surface, releasing the confused predator directly into the midst of the arena. The effect was one of pure, manufactured chaos, a shocking surprise engineered for the crowd's delight. Alongside these vertical traps were pivoting platforms, sections of the arena floor that could rotate. These were not for changing scenery, but for reconfiguring the battlefield itself. A small forest of trees or a rocky outcrop could be pre-assembled on a large turntable below. At a signal, stagehands would push against long levers, and a whole new landscape would swing into view, replacing an open plain with an obstacle-filled hunting ground in a matter of seconds. This constant transformation kept the audience off balance and engaged, turning the arena into a dynamic, unpredictable stage where the very ground could shift to create new dangers and new spectacles. This was the machinery of violence, a cold, calculated system that used ropes and winches to orchestrate fear and death, proving that Roman engineering could build nightmares as easily as it could build dreams. While the grand machines created singular illusions, the true genius of Roman stagecraft often lay in modular, adaptable devices. The pegma was one such marvel, a multi-purpose stage machine whose very name hints at its complex nature, derived from a word meaning framework or structure. This was not a single-purpose crane or a simple elevator, but a versatile wooden construction that could be configured and reconfigured to serve countless roles in a performance. Imagine a robust, wheeled platform, but one equipped with its own internal mechanics. At its simplest, a pegma could be rolled onto the stage as a movable deus, elevating an emperor or an orator above the crowd for maximum visibility and dramatic emphasis. Yet with a few modifications, the same basic framework transformed into something far more magical. By incorporating a central winch and a system of pulleys, the platform itself could become a self-contained elevator. An actor or a statue could be hidden within its base, then smoothly raised into view as if materializing from the very planks of the stage. This allowed for reveals that felt organic and surprising, with the machinery itself remaining completely concealed within the moving structure. The pegma's most breathtaking application, however, was as a device for tableaux vivants, or living pictures. A large pegma could be designed like a folding screen or a multi-sided cabinet. It would be rolled on stage, showing a blank or neutral face to the audience. Then, at the perfect moment, its sides would pivot or its front panels would drop away, instantly revealing a meticulously arranged scene of actors frozen in a dramatic pose, depicting a famous myth or a historical moment. The suddenness of the transformation was its power, a silent, stunning burst of visual storytelling that required no words. Its versatility made it indispensable across all forms of entertainment. In the theatre, it might reveal the tragic aftermath of a battle. In the amphitheater, a massive pegma could be used to present a symbolic scene to the crowds before a games began, or even to introduce a group of gladiators in a dramatic, elevated formation. The pegma was the ultimate utility player of the ancient stage, a testament to the Roman desire for efficiency and spectacle, proving that the most effective machine was not always the largest, but the one that could become anything the story demanded. The flicker of a single torch could alter the entire mood of a Roman play. In a world without electric spotlights or dimmer switches, the manipulation of light and fire was its own intricate art form, a dance of shadow and flame conducted with brilliant ingenuity. To simulate the gentle arrival of dawn, stagehands would slowly raise polished sheets of bronze or silver, carefully angled to catch the rays of the actual sun, and reflect them onto a specific area of the stage. The light would appear to grow from a soft glow to a bright pool, signaling a new day without a single word being spoken. For a sudden, dramatic sunset, the process was reversed. The reflectors were tilted away, plunging the stage into deepening twilight, often accompanied by the haunting sound of a hidden hydraulis to underscore the transition. But their command over fire went far beyond simple illumination. When a script called for a building to burn or a sacrificial altar to blaze, the effect had to be both spectacular and safe. They achieved this with controlled chemical mixtures. By sprinkling certain powdered resins or sulfur onto a brazier's flames, technicians could create bursts of intensely colored fire, a vibrant green or a hellish blue that would captivate and terrify the audience. For a spreading inferno, they used pre-soaked rags or treated wooden props that would produce vast, billowing clouds of smoke with relatively little actual flame, creating the visceral illusion of a consuming fire. The timing of these effects was everything. A carefully rehearsed symphony of light and shadow conducted by unseen hands. A god descending from the machine might be preceded by a ring of torches suddenly flaring around the stage, his divine presence announced by a wave of manufactured radiance. This mastery of atmosphere proves that Roman stagecraft was not just about what the audience saw happen, but about how they felt while watching it. They understood that light itself could be a character in the story, a silent narrator guiding the audience from hope to despair and back again, all orchestrated by the simple yet profound power of reflected sunlight and carefully controlled flame. A warrior's helmet could sprout a horsehair crest with a simple tug of a hidden cord. This was the magic of integrated costume design, where an actor's own movement became the trigger for a mechanical surprise. Far from being static garments, these costumes were active participants in the performance, engineered to enhance the character and the drama. An actor playing a god might have thin, almost invisible wires woven into his sleeves, allowing a stagehand offstage to gently pull, making his arms rise in a gesture of benediction, as if moved by an unseen force. The rustle of silk and the clink of armor hid a world of clever mechanisms. For a quick, miraculous transformation, an actor could step behind a thin, portable screen held by two assistants. A sharp pull on a central latch by a third stagehand would cause the entire outer costume to fall away in one piece, revealing a completely different outfit underneath in the blink of an eye. This was not a mere change of clothes. It was a moment of pure theatrical illusion, a reveal that could signify a character's true identity or a sudden shift in fortune. The spectacle extended to the props they handled. A stage dagger, seemingly plunged into an actor's chest, would retract its blade into the hilt while simultaneously releasing a pouch of animal blood concealed within the tunic, creating a gruesomely convincing wound. Ceramic urns, designed to shatter on cue, were scored with precise, hidden cracks and held together by a weak adhesive, so that when thrown to the ground, they would explode into fragments exactly as scripted. Every element, from the clothes on their back to the weapons in their hands, was part of a larger, coordinated machine. These automated costumes and props added a layer of intimate, personal wonder to the grand, stage-wide illusions, making the magic feel tangible and immediate. The audience was not just watching a story unfold on a distant stage. They were witnessing miracles happen right before their eyes, in the hands and on the bodies of the performers themselves. How did such intricate knowledge, the very blueprint for this world of wonder, simply vanish from history? The secrets of the stage did not emerge from thin air. They were meticulously planned by a brilliant class of engineers and architects, thinkers who translated grand ambition into workable wooden machines. Among these masterminds, one name echoes through history with particular clarity: Marcus Vitruvius Pollio. A military engineer under Emperor Augustus, Vitruvius did what few of his peers ever did. He wrote everything down. His 10-volume work, De Architectura, is not merely a book on building. It is a detailed blueprint for the Roman world, and within its pages lies an entire chapter dedicated to the machinery of the theatre. It was Vitruvius who described the precise mathematics behind perfect acoustics, explaining how to design a theatre so a whisper from the stage could reach the highest tier. He detailed the construction of the bronze thunder vats, the hidden periaktoi, and the complex pulleys for the flying gods. His writings are our single most important window into the backstage world, a technical manual for wonder. Yet for every Vitruvius who recorded his knowledge, there were hundreds of anonymous master builders whose genius existed only in the structures they created. These were the men who took the architectural principles from scrolls and turned them into theatrical reality. They solved the daily problems of weight and stress, figuring out exactly how much hemp rope could bear before it snapped, or how to distribute the load of a massive elevator platform so the wooden beams beneath the stage would not groan and give way. They were the true architects of illusion, experimenting with different ratios for their counterweights to achieve that perfectly swift, yet controlled, curtain drop. Their legacy is not in ink, but in the very footprints of the theaters they left behind, in the post holes for cranes and the grooves in the stone where revolving stages once turned. These unnamed engineers understood that the principles of building a sturdy bridge were the same as those for building a believable miracle. Both relied on a profound respect for physics and a fearless creativity. They operated in the space between theory and practice, transforming the raw ideas of visionaries into the gasps and cheers of a Roman crowd, proving that the greatest spectacle was not just the performance on the stage, but the invisible intelligence that made it all possible. A single performance required a hidden army. While the audience gasped at the illusions unfolding before them, an entire city of workers toiled in the darkness behind the scenes. For a grand production involving flying gods, collapsing temples, and sudden floods, the backstage area would swarm with hundreds of souls, a core team of specialized engineers, the men who understood the precise mechanics of each machine, would oversee the operation. Beneath them, gangs of stage hands, often slaves or paid laborers, provided the raw muscle. Dozens would be assigned just to the main winches for the guard-making cranes. Their synchronized effort needed to lower a deity with convincing grace. Another team manned the thunder vats and lightning sheets, while a separate crew handled the complex counterweights for the auleum curtain and the underground elevators. In the amphitheater, the numbers were even more staggering, with teams dedicated solely to managing the wild beasts in the hypogeum and operating the massive capstans that raised gladiators into the light. This was not a quiet, orderly process. It was a symphony of controlled chaos with shouted commands, the groan of wood, and the constant squeal of ropes moving under immense strain. The materials they worked with were as robust as the men themselves. The ropes that hoisted guards and cages were not mere string. They were thick cables woven from hemp, each one as thick as a man's wrist, capable of supporting weights of several thousand pounds. The beams and platforms were crafted from dense, strong timber like oak or elm, chosen for its ability to resist splintering under sudden stress. At every pivot point, you would find meticulously cast bronze pulleys, their grooves worn smooth by the endless passage of these heavy ropes. For the most critical components, like the locking mechanisms for elevators or the internal gears of a winch, blacksmiths forged iron parts, tough and reliable. This combination of human effort and material strength was the true engine of the spectacle. The grandeur on stage was a direct reflection of the sweat, skill, and rugged engineering lurking just out of sight, a testament to a society that could marshal every resource, both human and material, in the pursuit of wonder. Those revolving prisms were the secret to cinematic storytelling long before the invention of film. The periaktoi were not just decorative set pieces. They were precisely engineered machines built for speed and surprise. Each one was a massive, hollow triangular prism, constructed from a sturdy wooden frame to keep it lightweight enough for a single person to spin, yet robust enough to withstand the rigors of daily performance. They were typically mounted on a central, heavy-duty pivot, a metal pin set into a socket on the stage floor, allowing the entire structure to rotate smoothly. At the top, the frame was stabilized by a ring or another pivot point attached to the stage wall, ensuring it would not wobble dangerously as it turned. The three flat sides of the prism were the canvas for the scene painter's art. One side might be vividly painted with the columns and statues of a bustling city square. The next could depict a dense, mysterious forest with towering trees. The third might show the rough, storm-tossed waves of a coastline. Their placement was strategic, usually positioned at the left and right sides of the stage, framing the action and defining the world of the play. When the script demanded a change of location, a stagehand, hidden from the audience's view in the wings, would place their hands on the wooden frame and push. With a single fluid rotation, the entire visible world at the edge of the stage transformed. The city vanished, replaced by the deep woods in a matter of seconds. This was more than a simple backdrop swap. It was a physical rotation that the audience could almost feel, a tangible shift in the story's reality. The creak of the wooden frame turning, the sudden splash of new color, all combined to create a powerful sense of journey. A character could walk from one side of the stage to the other, and, with the synchronized spin of both periaktoi, appear to have traveled from the heart of a metropolis to a lonely shore. This instant transportation was the closest thing the ancient world had to a cinematic cut, a visual magic trick that kept the story moving at a thrilling pace, proving that the most powerful illusions are often the simplest ones executed to perfection. Every spectacle was a carefully crafted political message. When an emperor funded a day of games, he was not merely providing entertainment. He was staging a public demonstration of his own legitimacy and generosity. The machinery itself became a tool of propaganda, a way to make abstract power feel terrifyingly real. Consider the god-making crane, the deus ex machina. In a play, it might resolve a fictional plot, but when used in an imperial celebration, its message was unequivocal. The emperor, watching from his special box, had the power to literally lower a god onto the stage. This was a direct association of his rule with divine will, suggesting that the gods themselves endorsed his reign and would descend to earth at his command. The collapsing temple was another potent symbol. By orchestrating the controlled destruction of a sacred building, the emperor demonstrated his command over even the most permanent and revered structures. He could create chaos and then stop it at will, proving his ability to protect the state from any disaster. But the propaganda was not always so subtle. The sudden, shocking arrival of a gladiator or a wild beast from an underground elevator sent a simpler, more brutal message. The state controlled a hidden world of power that could erupt into the light at any moment, delivering both salvation and punishment. These spectacles were also masterful tools of distraction. By flooding an orchestra for a naval battle, or transforming the stage into a burning city, the state offered the populace an irresistible escape. For a few hours, the pressing issues of high taxes, food shortages, or political corruption were forgotten, replaced by the overwhelming sensory experience of engineered marvels. This was bread and circuses in its most technologically advanced form. The roaring crowd, mesmerized by the illusions, was a crowd not questioning its rulers. The machinery did not just build scenes. It built consent, reinforcing the social order by making the emperor the ultimate producer of wonder and the sole source of such breathtaking entertainment. The message was clear. A world without his leadership would be a world without magic. How far would a society go to preserve the source of such awe? And what happened when the machines finally fell silent for good? The roar of the Colosseum crowd was a distant, muffled thunder, a world away from the damp, cramped reality of the hypogeum. This was the true engine room of the spectacle, a sprawling, multi-level labyrinth of brick and shadow, concealed beneath the arena's wooden floor. Recent archaeological scans have peeled back the sand and stone, revealing a complexity that rivals the city streets above. This was not a single, simple basement, but a vertical city of machinery. A maze of narrow corridors, sudden drops, and small chambers stacked atop one another. Imagine the constant, frantic motion down here, stagehands and animal handlers darting through tunnels, slaves straining at capstans, and gladiators waiting in the dim light, all moving to a choreography of pulleys and ropes. The hypogeum was a living, breathing organism, its stone arteries feeding the arena floor with a continuous supply of surprises. The sheer density of these underground networks tells us that the famous naval battles, the Normatia, held in the Colosseum were likely far more intricate than we once believed. Instead of flooding the entire arena, engineers may have used the hypogeum's channels to create smaller, deeper pools for ship combat, or even to power water-driven mechanisms we have yet to fully understand. Every stone groove, every post hole for a winch, speaks of a relentless drive for innovation. This hidden world was a testament to Roman engineering's greatest strength, its ability to command space, not just in the soaring arches above, but in the meticulously planned chaos of the world below. The intricate machines fell silent as the empire crumbled. The political will and colossal funding required for these spectacles evaporated, replaced by the pressing needs of survival and defense. The great theaters and amphitheaters, once the vibrant heart of civic life, were gradually abandoned, their stone quarried for fortifications, and their wooden stages left to rot. The specialized knowledge of the stage engineers, never widely known outside a small circle of craftsmen, was one of the first casualties of this collapse. The scrolls detailing the mathematics of counterweights and the schematics for periaktoi were no longer copied, their parchments crumbling to dust in forgotten libraries or reused for more pressing texts. The guilds of stagehands and machinists disbanded, their skills dying with them. In the so-called Dark Ages, the very purpose of such grand, secular entertainment was called into question. The new cultural focus of Europe turned inward, towards spirituality and the afterlife, leaving little room for the earthly, spectacular illusions that had once delighted Roman crowds. The machinery of wonder was not so much destroyed as it was dismantled by neglect, its principles fading from memory like a forgotten language. Yet the human desire for spectacle and visual storytelling never truly vanished. It simply found new forms, retreating into the walls of the church itself. The great cathedrals of the Middle Ages became the new theaters. Here, the legacy of Roman machinery lived on in a different guise. Priests and monks staged liturgical dramas, and for these sacred plays, they engineered their own simple but effective devices. A system of ropes and pulleys might be used to lower an angel from the vaulted ceiling. A direct, albeit humble, descendant of the mighty deus ex machina. A tomb might be made to open through a hidden lever, echoing the sudden reveals of the Roman stage. The technology was simpler, the scale was smaller, but the fundamental impulse to use mechanics to manifest the divine was a direct thread connecting the two eras. The memory of the old ways was kept faintly alive, not in engineering manuals, but in the persistent need to make the invisible seem tangibly, miraculously real. It would take a rebirth of classical learning to fully reawaken the engineering spirit of the Roman stage, a rebirth we call the Renaissance. That forgotten world of ropes and pulleys is slowly being resurrected. Across the globe, teams of historians, archaeologists, and engineers are collaborating on a unique form of time travel, using experimental archaeology to rebuild Roman stage machines exactly as they were. They take the descriptions left by Vitruvius, combine them with the physical evidence from ancient theater sites, and then they start building. These are not just academic exercises, they are full-scale, functional reconstructions designed to answer a very simple but profound question. Did these incredible machines actually work as we think they did? One of the most ambitious projects focused on the god-making crane, the deus ex machina. Following Vitruvius's specifications, a team constructed a massive wooden winch and a projecting brachium, or arm, using only tools and materials available to the Romans. They used heavy hemp ropes and carved wooden pulleys. The moment of truth came when they attempted to lower an actor. The team discovered that the system was not only functional, but surprisingly sophisticated. The winch allowed for incredibly precise control over the descent, enabling the actor to sweep in a smooth, majestic arc, rather than just dropping straight down. They learned that the real challenge was not the lifting, but the landing, requiring a well-coordinated team to set the god down gently without a comical stumble. This experiment proved that Roman engineering was not just about brute force. It was about achieving a specific, graceful aesthetic. Another group tackled the thunder machine, pouring stone balls into a massive, suspended copper sheet. The sound it produced was not a mild rumble, but a deep, chest-vibrating roar that was genuinely startling, even to those expecting it. This proved that the Roman soundscape was not a subtle background effect, but an immersive physical experience. These reconstructions have taught us that the Romans were masters of material science. They understood the exact tensile strength of their hemp ropes, the pivot points that needed bronze bearings to reduce friction, and the precise grain of wood that could bear immense stress without splintering. Every successful test is a tribute to their forgotten genius, revealing that their stagecraft was not myth, but a precise and repeatable technology. That same wooden crane lowering a god in Pompeii shares a direct lineage with the sophisticated fly systems in a Broadway theater today. The fundamental goal is identical: to make an audience believe in the impossible, to see a figure defy gravity and float in a space where no human should. The Romans used a brachium, a projecting wooden arm, and a team of stagehands hauling on a hemp rope. We use steel I-beams, aircraft cables, and computerized winches. The materials have evolved, but the core principle of a rope running over a pulley to lift a performer remains a constant thread through 2,000 years of stagecraft. The Roman machinist and the modern fly crew are kin, both masters of vertical illusion. This parallel extends beneath the stage floor. The Roman catapisma, that startling elevator powered by counterweights and sheer muscle, finds its modern counterpart in the hydraulic orchestra lift. In an ancient amphitheater, the platform rose to reveal gladiators. In a contemporary concert hall, that same rising platform brings an entire symphony orchestra into view. The technology has shifted from weights and pulleys to pressurized fluid and electric motors. Yet the dramatic effect is the same: a sudden, magical appearance from below that captures the audience's breath. Even their revolving periaktoi, the triangular prisms that changed scenes with a push, have a direct descendant in our modern revolving stages and massive turntables used in musicals to shift between locations seamlessly. The desire for instant, fluid transformation is a timeless challenge, and both eras arrived at a similar mechanical solution. Why do these parallels feel so profound? Because they reveal that the engineering of awe is not about the tools, but about the human spirit. We are still solving the same problems the Romans did: how to make a story feel alive, how to build a world that feels real, and how to use every available technology to create a moment of pure, shared wonder. The machinery is just the language, but the story it tells is eternal. Roman stagecraft was a symphony of engineering, where every rope, pulley, and counterweight played its part in a grand illusion. The ingenuity required to make temples collapse on command, to flood an orchestra for a naval battle, or to lower a god from the heavens was not just about entertainment. It was a profound demonstration of human intellect. These engineers commanded the elements themselves, turning wood and rope into earthquakes, conflagrations, and divine interventions. Their machines did more than tell stories. They shaped the very consciousness of an empire, reinforcing political power and providing a shared cultural experience for tens of thousands of citizens at a time. To sit in one of those vast theaters was to witness the impossible made real, to feel the collective gasp of the crowd as the ground opened up or a deity soared overhead. That sense of awe, of pure, unadulterated wonder, is a testament to a civilization that mastered the art of spectacle. The legacy of these forgotten machinists lives on every time a modern stage creates a moment of magic, a direct echo of that ancient desire to build dreams out of raw physics. If these echoes from the past have captivated you, consider subscribing to join us as we continue to uncover the hidden mechanisms and enduring mysteries of the ancient world.